Stories contain many different types of characters, each of which have their own role to play. One of my personal favorites is the foil character. A foil is someone who has so much in common with another character that their differences help the audience get a better understanding of who they are. Sometimes a foil character is used to highlight certain characteristics in a main character. Sometimes there are two foils who can be compared to each other. NieR is a series that has a lot of foil characters. In this video, I'll be focusing on the ones that I consider to be the best from the games Replicant and Automata. There will be spoilers to both of these games, so proceed with caution. And just as a quick side note, whenever I mention the character NieR, I am talking about this guy. In the game, players can name him whatever they want, but most fans, including myself, call him NieR. Without further ado, Number 5. Weiss and NieR foil each other. In order for humans to be saved from the white chlorination syndrome, a group of scientists found a way to split people's souls from their bodies. This process became known as Project Gestalt, and it was up to the Shadow Lord to bring the bodies and souls back together. Two living grimoires, Weiss and NieR, were made in order to help him and were given the power of the sealed verses, the magical abilities that they can use in order to fight. However, they would eventually use their power to fight each other, as Grimoire Weiss lost his memories in the beginning of Replicant and joined forces with NieR. While NieR continued to aid the Shadow Lord and intended on saving humanity, Weiss formed a similar bond with the playable character, which resulted in Project Gestalt's failure. Even though the two books originally shared a goal and formed similar relationships, they split up just like the people they were meant to save, one serving the soul and doing all it could for humanity, while the other bonded with the body and cared more about helping his friends. Number 4. Gideon is a foil character to NieR. Gideon may be one of the most hated characters in the series, but that doesn't stop him from being a pretty good foil. While players know that he was responsible for his brother's death, he believed that a machine called P-33 was the one who killed Jacob. Because of this, he swore to murder all machines. This is very similar to how NieR vowed to slaughter any shades he comes across after the Shadow Lord kidnapped Yona. Both NieR and Gideon care a lot about their siblings, and due to their absences, developed similar mindsets. When NieR learned that P-33 was with the Shade, he agreed to help Gideon on his quest for revenge, and ended up defeating their enemies. Gideon then went mad, screaming and hitting the innocent machine, and planned on making powerful weapons, as that was all he felt was left for him to do. While NieR has his emotional moments, he often thinks before he acts and keeps his cool. Even when he confronted the Shadow Lord, he didn't rely on his emotions the way that Gideon did, which helped him achieve his goal of saving Yona. Number 3. Adam and Eve are foils of one another. In NieR Automata, a group of machines came together to create Adam, the first of their kind who looked like a human. When he was born, 2B and 9S attacked him, and from his wounds, his brother, Eve, came to life. Adam and Eve became the main antagonists throughout the first half of the game. Despite being born at the same time, having the same enemy, usually being seen with the other, and being the only two of their kind, the brothers have incredibly different personalities. Adam is a very logical thinker and desires to know more about the human race, reading about them and trying to mimic their behavior. Eve, on the other hand, acts like an emotional child who wants to play all the time. Adam's knowledge of humanity ended up being his downfall, as he came to the conclusion that humans thrive on conflict and therefore he should as well. He fought 2B again, who ended up killing him, which devastated his little brother. Eve then attacked the androids, hoping to avenge Adam, but ended up dying too. While his older brother was more of a strategist who fought defensively, Eve was incredibly reckless when attacking and did all that he could to cause as much destruction as possible, wanting his enemies to feel his pain. I would also like to mention that Eve has, in my opinion at least, one of the best character arcs in the series. If you would be interested in a video that covers his arc in more detail, along with the other best character arcs in the games, let me know. I'd be happy to make one. Number 2. Devila and Popola from NieR Automata both serve as foil characters to their counterparts in NieR Replicant. These twin sister android models were originally responsible for observing the replicants and assisting the Shadow Lord in completing Project Gestalt. To achieve this goal, Popola and Devila acted as the leaders of NieR's town and formed a close bond with him. They hid their true identities and tricked him into finding the sealed verses, which they had the ability to use just like the Grimoires. However, when NieR was ready to face the Shadow Lord, the sisters revealed the truth about humanity and fought him, along with his comrades. They were defeated, and, as a result, Project Gestalt was a failure. In some ways, these versions of the sisters foil each other. While Popola is more of an introvert and spends most of her time working in the library away from others, Devila is usually entertaining the villagers. Popola is also more determined to make sure that Project Gestalt is a success, while Devila seems to be more concerned with NieR, not wanting to betray him despite being programmed to do so. Though the sisters and Replicant do foil each other, they also foil another set of Devila and Popola models, the ones in NieR Automata. After Project Gestalt failed, the rest of the androids blamed all the Popolas and Devilas and either disposed of them or replaced their memories with unwarranted feelings of guilt. While the models and Replicant knew more about the world than anyone around them and tried to not feel guilty for betraying NieR, the few of their kind who survived were oblivious to the past and were in a constant state of culpability. In Automata, Popola and Devila repaired other androids, making it so they could continue fighting against the machines. Towards the end of the game, they assisted 9S in accessing the tower, and this scene parallels the one in which their Replicant counterparts first fought NieR. In Replicant, the androids tried to convince NieR and his friends to turn back from the Shadow Lord's castle. He refused, however, causing them to point their weapons at him. Despite stating that they didn't want to fight, they attacked the young man who always looked up to them. In Automata, Devila and Popola walked over to 9S outside the tower. They drew their weapons and ran towards him. At first, he thought they were going to attack him, which many players likely believed as well, but their targets were actually the machines behind him. During the battle, they noticed that 9S couldn't get past the tower's barrier and sacrificed themselves to help him one last time, atoning for the sins they never committed in the first place. Number 1. NieR is a foil character of NieR, or rather, his soul foils his body. Throughout the first game in the series, NieR goes on a journey to save his sister. First from the Black Scroll, an illness similar to the White Chlorination Syndrome, and then the Shadow Lord, his own soul. NieR is clearly an active protagonist, going on quests to find the sealed verses, battling shades, and doing everything in his power to protect Yona. Though he has his own sentience, his experiences and feelings also reflect his gestalts. Before Project Gestalt began, Yona got sick and the Shadow Lord agreed to become the first Shade in order to save her. Throughout the centuries, he waited to take his body back and put his sister inside of hers, making him a passive antagonist. However, he eventually chose to act on his own, growing impatient and wanting nothing more than to reunite with his sister. Since the Shadow Lord does not consider replicants to be real people, there was nothing holding him back from kidnapping Yona and attacking NieR. Likewise, NieR doesn't know that the Shades are actually humans. By dehumanizing each other, NieR and the Shadow Lord both feel justified when hurting and even killing innocent people if it means saving Yona. NieR even slayed some of the Shades who worked for the Shadow Lord, and by the end of the game, the antagonist had no one to rely on. NieR, on the other hand, made many friends throughout his journey, some of which were willing to sacrifice themselves if it meant helping him. While NieR and the Shadow Lord wanted the same thing, it was impossible for both of them to achieve their goal, so they would fight until one of them died. Yona had a much better understanding of the situation and ultimately decided that her replicant self should be with her brother. As a result, NieR ended up getting what he wanted, while the Shadow Lord was lonelier than ever and accepted his defeat. At the end of their battle, the Shadow Lord says, "Yona, I cannot live in a world without you." While NieR doesn't understand his gestalt, he says, "I have something to defend. I have a reason to live. Right after, which clearly tells us how these two characters became so different at the end of the game, despite at one point being the same person. NieR has some of my favorite foil characters in any story I have ever experienced. Which are your favorites? And do you agree with this list? Let me know in the comments and have a wonderful week. Thank you for watching.